$1 doesn't mean much today. It might buy a candy bar or a bottle of water if you're lucky. But in 1960, a single dollar bill had real purchasing power. If someone lived through that era, they remember exactly how far that dollar could stretch. This was a time when $1 was real money. You could walk into a store with a single bill and walk out with multiple items. Kids could go to the movies, buy candy, and still have change. $1 in your pocket meant you had options, not just enough for a cup of coffee. This was the decade before inflation really took off. Prices were stable and predictable. A gallon of gas cost 25 cents. A loaf of bread was 20 cents. The numbers on price tags made sense. Let's walk through what that single dollar bill could actually buy in 1960 America. Some of this might bring back memories. Some of it might shock anyone who only knows modern prices. The purchasing power of $1 in 1960 would be equivalent to about $9 today, but even that does not capture how different the economy felt. Let's step into that world and see what $1 meant. A gallon of gasoline in 1960 cost about 25 cents. That meant $1 bought 4 gallons. 4 gallons. In a typical car in the 1960s that got maybe 12 to 15 miles per gallon, that dollar could take you 50 to 60 miles. $1 literally got you somewhere. Gas stations were full service. An attendant would pump your gas, check your oil, clean your windshield, and check your tire pressure. All of that was included. You did not pump your own gas. For $1, you got 4 gallons and full service. The gas itself was leaded gasoline. Unleaded gasoline would not become standard until the 1970s, but the price was fairly consistent across the country, give or take a few cents. Gas wars between competing stations could drop the price even lower. Food shopping with $1 in 1960 meant coming home with groceries, plural. A loaf of white bread cost about 20 cents. A quart of milk was around 25 cents. A dozen eggs were about 55 cents. Ground beef was around 45 cents per pound. With $1, you could buy a loaf of bread and a quart of milk and still have change. Or you could buy a pound of ground beef and a loaf of bread. $1 at the grocery store meant actual food for dinner, not just a snack. The supermarkets in 1960 were smaller than modern ones, but still had variety. Shopping was simpler. Fewer brands, fewer options, lower prices. Coffee cost about 75 cents per pound. $1 bought a pound with change left over. Sugar was around 10 cents per pound. A can of Campbell's soup was about 10 cents. These were not sale prices, these were regular prices. Food was affordable in a way that seems impossible now. Going to the movies with $1 was not just possible, it was a complete experience. Movie tickets in 1960 cost 50 to 75 cents, depending on the theater. Let's say 69 cents for an evening show. That left 31 cents for concessions. Popcorn was a dime. Candy bars were a nickel. A soda was a dime, or 15 cents. With that 31 cents, you could get popcorn and candy and maybe a drink. $1 got you into the movie theater and gave you snacks, the whole experience for a single bill. Kids would get dropped off at the Saturday matinee with $1, and that was enough for the ticket, popcorn, candy, and maybe a comic book on the way home. The theaters in 1960 were single-screen affairs, not multiplexes yet. Many were ornate inside, with curtains over the screen and ushers carrying flashlights. Movies were often double features, 2 films for that 1 ticket price. Fast food was just becoming a thing in 1960, and $1 went a long way. McDonald's had limited locations, but it was expanding. A hamburger cost 15 cents. A cheeseburger cost 19 cents. Fries were 10 cents. A shake was 20 cents. With $1 at McDonald's, you could buy a cheeseburger, fries, and a shake, with change left over. Or you could buy multiple hamburgers. $1 bought a meal, not just an item. The burgers were smaller than modern ones. The fries came in paper bags. The shakes were made with actual ice cream. Everything felt simpler and cheaper. $1 bought lunch with room to spare. Sit-down diners were also affordable. A complete breakfast at a diner might cost 50 to 75 cents. Eggs, bacon, toast, and coffee. $1 was enough for breakfast with a small tip. Cigarettes in 1960 cost about 25 to 30 cents per pack. $1 bought 3 packs, with change. Smoking was common and socially acceptable. People smoked everywhere. The health warnings were not on the packs yet. A newspaper in 1960 cost about 5 cents. $1 bought 20 newspapers. The point is, the price was negligible. The daily paper was something everyone could afford. The Sunday paper with all the sections might cost a dime or 15 cents. It was still incredibly cheap. The classified ads were how people found jobs, apartments, and used cars. Magazines cost around 25 to 35 cents. Magazines like Life, Look, and the Saturday Evening Post were common. $1 bought multiple magazines. A comic book cost 10 cents. $1 bought 10 comic books. Kids would go to the drugstore with quarters and dimes and come home with stacks of comics. Superman, Batman, Archie, all were a dime each. The comics had advertisements in the back for X-ray glasses, sea monkeys, Charles Atlas bodybuilding courses. The comics themselves were printed on cheap paper, but they were entertainment that was genuinely affordable. Candy was cheap in 1960. A candy bar cost 5 cents. A Hershey bar, a Snickers, a Baby Ruth, all a nickel. $1 bought 20 candy bars. Kids' allowances were measured in quarters, and that was enough for plenty of candy. The candy bars were smaller than modern ones, but not by much. Penny candy existed too. Jawbreakers, Tootsie Rolls, bubble gum. For literal pennies, kids could get treats. The 5 and dime stores like Woolworth's had candy counters where everything was priced by the piece. Kids would stand at the counter deciding how to spend their nickels and dimes. A gallon of milk delivered to your door cost about 50 cents, delivery included. The milkman would bring glass bottles to your doorstep early in the morning. You would leave the empty bottles out, and they would be replaced with full ones. $1 bought 2 days of milk delivery with service included. Milk delivery was common in 1960, though already declining. The glass bottles were returnable and reusable. The system worked, and it was affordable. A phone call from a payphone cost 10 cents, a dime. $1 bought 10 local calls. Payphones were everywhere, at gas stations, restaurants, and street corners. The phones were solid metal with rotary dials. You dropped in your dime, waited for the dial tone, and dialed. The coin would drop into the box with a satisfying clink. Postage for a first-class letter was 4 cents. $1 bought 25 stamps. 25 letters could be mailed for $1. Communication through mail was the primary method for staying in touch with distant friends and family. A postcard stamp was 3 cents. Sending a postcard from vacation was cheap. Everyone did it. What defined the dollar in 1960 was purchasing power that seems unimaginable now. A single dollar bill meant options. It meant multiple items. It meant a complete experience, not just a fraction of one thing. The economy was different. Wages were lower, but so were prices. The ratio made sense. A minimum wage worker in 1960 made $1 an hour. That same hour of minimum wage work bought 4 gallons of gas, or a meal at McDonald's, or a movie ticket with snacks. The dollar had weight. For those who remember 1960, the prices seem impossible to younger people, but they were real. The economy functioned differently. The value of money was different. A dollar meant something. The inflation since 1960 has been dramatic. What cost $1 then costs roughly $9 now. But even adjusting for inflation does not capture how different it felt. The simplicity of prices, the predictability, the sense that money had value you could see and feel. For those with memories of what $1 could buy in 1960, there is always more history to explore.